goodness, that's the moment. A small plane, look at that, crashed in a Philadelphia neighborhood. According to our sister station, there are reports of nearby homes catching on fire because of this crash. At least 2 people were on board the plane, and there's reports of multiple people hurt on the ground. It comes just 2 days after a commercial plane and military helicopter collided outside Washington, D.C., killing all 67 on board both aircraft.
We are staying on top of breaking news out of Northeast Philadelphia, where a medical jet crashed just moments after taking off from Northeast Philadelphia Airport. Here's what we know so far. The blast sent flames and debris flying through the air and ignited nearby homes, businesses, and cars. The jet that crashed was a medical plane, a Learjet 55. It took off from Northeast Philadelphia Airport and was bound for Springfield, Missouri, then Tijuana, Mexico. Officials say 6 people were on board, including a child who had just received treatment at Shriners Hospital.
I can now also confirm some more tragic news. We know that Jet Rescue Air Ambulance, the company that owns that plane that crashed, they did tell us 6 people were on board, 4 crew members, pilot, co-pilot, physician, paramedic, and a young girl and her mother. I've just now confirmed with Shriners Children's in Philadelphia that that young girl had been treated at their hospital. I just got a statement moments ago from a media spokesperson. I want to read it and share it with our viewers. It says in part, quote, Shriners Children's is heartbroken to confirm that one of our pediatric patients and the child's mother were aboard the Jet Rescue Air Ambulance that crashed in Philadelphia this evening. The patient had received care from Shriners Children's Philadelphia and was being transported back to her home country in Mexico on a contracted air ambulance when the crash happened. Because of patient privacy concerns, we cannot say more about the patient and her family at this time. And the statement goes on to say that the entire medical crew at the hospital is deeply impacted. The hospital offering its hearts and prayers to those who are also impacted by this situation and thanking the first responders.
She's still hanging.
Welcome everyone to the Hurting Humanity channel. As you just saw, the sky is falling. Planes are dropping from the sky at a rate, well, pretty much the same rate that they chemtrail us every single day. We're seeing planes now dropping daily across the United States of America. And of course, this clearly fits into an agenda. This is something that is not happening by coincidence. Now, you may have seen some of the imagery of that plane over Philadelphia falling from the sky that almost looked like a missile falling from the sky. Now, there's going to be people that doubt that it was an actual plane because it was already on fire as it was coming down at such a rapid pace from the sky. But the bottom line is they're going to tell you that it was a plane one way or the other because the agenda is going to tie into air travel safety concerns, AI infrastructure in regards to autonomous airplanes, and AI running and controlling air tower stations. So those are all agendas that are moving forward. And of course, limited travel in a new world order, which I'll get into. Don't forget that later in the video. So some of the footage is just bizarre that's out there. Some would say it looks like a comet. Some would say it looks like a directed energy weapon, right? One thing is for sure, we are under attack from our own government, and we're going to see more and more psyops every single day. So one of the things I want to point out so that you can see that this is obviously a government job, and I've got a few good clips that you need to see, is let's start with the obvious in those news clips that I shared with you. Bringing up the Shriners Hospital right off the bat. That's a Masonic calling card. We always talk about what? How 33 is always involved in this, and I'll show you how 33 and 666 are involved in it as well in a few minutes. But almost immediately after this event occurs, somehow the Shriners Hospital knows who was on board. The plane didn't take off from the rooftop of the Shriners Hospital. It took off from an airport. And the Shriners immediately released a statement. This is how they communicate with one another in their false flag psychological operations that they run on us every single day. It is a calling card. So for anyone out there that doesn't know, the Shriners are an international fraternal organization that you can only become a Shriner if you are a Freemason. You have to be at least a Master Mason to become a Shriner. And the Shriners are known for their children's hospital because, of course, they are. Because they've been trained in philanthropy, which people out there don't even know what that means. It means that if you were a Luciferian and you were performing the things that people like me claim, would you openly out in public admit to people that you worship Lucifer and you were performing blood rituals and blood oaths and all this stuff, and you were performing satanic rituals in your Masonic lodges, which have fake windows on it so you can't see inside? Would you be telling people that? Of course not. What would you be doing? You'd be presenting yourself as a Christian, as loving, caring people. And of course, you'd be saying that you give all your time and money to children's hospitals. But we all know that the children's hospital comes in handy for the Shriners and the Freemasons because it's very easy for them to access sick and dying children, which of course we know, if you've listened to the things that I've talked about on this channel over the years, we know how important children are to these rituals. It's about more than just a lust. It is about a need for the highest power in magic to be performed and needing children to perform that ritual magic. That is taught by Aleister Crowley, and we see Aleister Crowley all around us. We see his teachings all around us being normalized, from things like yoga to even the mindset of our current society of do what thou wilt. So the Shriners are a Masonic fraternal order, right? And of course, you can look at the logo like I talked about recently. You can see the crescent moon and the pentagram right in their logo. You know, I don't know what people think that these logos mean, that somebody just was like, hey, I'm going to scribble a sword. I'm going to put some Egyptian deity on it. And I like moons and stars because I like to look up at the sky at night. I'm going to put that in there. These are all occult, esoteric symbology that they use in their logos and symbology. And you can see the crescent moon, like I stated recently, and the pentagram associated with the Baphomet as well. We have famous Shriners out there. I'll give you a quick run before we get back into detail about this supposed crash, because we'll never really know if it was a real plane crash or not, if Jane Doe was on board along with John Doe, along with George Glass flying and operating the plane. We'll never know if there's real human beings on board any of these, because they could autonomously do this to create obvious fear and panic and start changing the infrastructure of air travel, which is part of their agenda. So we've seen people like Brad Paisley openly wear his Shriner's hat out in public. We've seen Harry Truman, who's proudly a Shriner and a Freemason, the same person I quoted, the President of the United States, who talked about his highest honor of his life, his highest achievement, was serving in the secret society of Freemasonry, above, of course, serving as President of the United States, which should tell you how much power these people wield. He's even had Shriners in the White House before and been photographed with them. Other Shriners out there include, yes, Colonel Sanders. What do you think? Colonel Sanders just came up with the idea to make fried chicken and nobody had thought about it before. And his fried chicken was so much better than everybody else's that Colonel Sanders was able to open up a fried chicken place. And then from there, he opened up another and became a billionaire. No, that's not how it works at all, actually. There are people who came up with these ideas. In fact, I've covered Colonel Sanders before and the idea of fried chicken and how that was stolen. Kind of like you hear these other stories with McDonald's and how these small businesses get hijacked and taken over by all of these people. And nobody ever says who these people are. Well, these are your Freemasons, your Shriners, your members of secret society who run and control everything. And then they want you to think that they get there by hard work so that you try as hard as you can, but you never get there. And that leads to depression and anxiety and people losing the will to live because they've been told their entire lives, oh, it's the American dream. You can get there if you want. Well, they sit there and laugh and everybody out there falls on their face because they never are able to achieve the things that they tell them they can achieve. And even people who do achieve things, they take it away from you, right? Like silencing free speech or telling people that they have to do certain things to keep their job, like put poison inside of their body, right? So we have Colonel Sanders, of course, who's not Colonel Sanders of KFC for nothing. He's not there because his food tastes good. We have, of course, astronauts. We all know the connection to Freemasonry and Shriners with these astronauts who were strategically placed to pretend to go to the moon. There's many of these guys. You always see these commercials air of the Shriners where they pretend to love and care about children. They're just creepy commercials. Have you ever seen the Shriner commercials? They're disturbing, right? They have these kids who are really, really sick, and you look at the commercial and you just feel heartbroken for the children. Then you see these Shriners lurking behind them, standing behind them, saying, we're here to help and do all this stuff. And when you're awake, you know, in the back of your mind, or the front of your mind, I should say, when you see this and you see these sick children, that the people in these hospitals, these Shriners, are responsible for these sick children, because they're the people who are trying to mandate these children get vitamin K shots put in them at birth, which cause things like these children to be in these hospitals, or the chemicals in the food, or the chemicals jumping on us from the sky. So it's heartbreaking to see these children who are affected who end up at these Shriner hospitals. But this is a really easy way to manipulate people, right? Your kid gets sick, the Shriners will take care of them for free, right? And how dare anybody out there question who the Shriners are and what they worship and if they're good people or not. It is a front, okay? So another thing in this entire scenario here with Philadelphia that I saw that I need to point out is the time of the plane. This is a coded clip from Fox News, okay? We had 6 people in the crash. The flight took off at exactly 6:06. So 6:06 takeoff with 6 people on board. You have your 666 coding. They said it out in the open on Fox News.
It's a Learjet 55, and apparently it crashed just outside of a mall in Philadelphia. Shortly after 6 o'clock, this Learjet took off, and the air traffic control is saying around 6:06. And at 6:06:30 seconds, it apparently went off radar. 6:06. And at 6:06:30 seconds.
So that should be just as obvious, the 666 going along with the immediate mention of the Shriners Hospital coming out with a statement. As if, you know, you hear a crash of a plane, right? And you're like, oh, the plane crashed from some location around. Somehow they immediately knew that child that they just heard in this huge hospital, right? There's all these children in this hospital. It's a packed hospital. It's a hospital. It's big, right? We've all been in hospitals or seen hospitals. They're big. The plane goes down. Immediately the Shriners somehow know who the child is. Won't give out the name. Of course, they care about privacy so much. But they want you to know that the child had just left their hospital, right? Wink, wink. And you have your 666 coding as well. Now, the other thing to note with all of these stories, we had the 67 people who were killed, where we had an Army helicopter. We had a Black Hawk literally flying directly into a commercial airplane. The helicopter, would have easily been able, with its radar, to detect, to monitor, to slow down, to stop from crashing into this plane. Now, some people don't even believe that event actually happened. They think that was CGI in the sky, which very well could be. It very well could be, right? When I look at these stories, I don't look at it from the standpoint of, well, who are they trying to get? Who's on the plane? I look at it from what agendas do they have in mind, right? So we have that story. We have this story now with Philadelphia. So Philadelphia, D.C., if you didn't hear, we had a plane that plunged in midair that was also D.C. bound about 5 days ago, that 6 people got seriously injured. The plane just plummeted in the sky. 40 were injured on board total. Then we had this other clip, if you didn't see this, that they put out there for us to see clearly. We had this video from an Alaska Air Force base of a fighter jet crash. Take a look at this. So we have planes, military planes falling from the sky, military helicopters crashing into commercial planes. We have chaos up in the air, right? And of course, one of the other things, in addition to the autonomous airplanes and the AI that they're bringing in to change the infrastructure over, remember, in the New World Order, there are travel bans. You do not move freely in a New World Order. And people out there need to know that, especially when it comes to your carbon footprint, right? You ever hear how they want you to know about the carbon footprint of these celebrities? Oh, Taylor Swift's carbon footprint from flying just from here to China will be more than a person's entire lifetime, right? Well, when they put in the limits on your carbon and what you can and cannot do, flying places will not be an option unless, of course, you stay inside your home for 362 days and you never leave the house and you never eat meat and you never turn on your electricity. Then maybe they'll allow you in the future to fly for 3 days to an island, probably with layovers in between, and then you'll go back home and you'll reset your carbon footprint for the year, right? So travel bans are a part of it. We see it in China. China is the blueprint for all this stuff. And again, you've heard these stories over the last couple of years where they're planting seeds in your mind to not want to travel, right? Everything that happened with COVID was a precursor for what our lives are supposed to be. Lockdowns, staying in our home, travel restrictions, right? Forced injections, lose your job, those types of things are the way they want us to live. Communicate through technology, right? Don't go see grandma or your mom on Christmas. Call her and FaceTime. How many people now, like I've been saying, do this normally versus pre-COVID? Nobody was FaceTiming ever. Now people prefer to use FaceTime and other apps on their phone to do live calls with their family members than actually go and see them. And that's the future. It's Ready Player One. You're literally going to be living in a cubicle communicating via tech, and you're going to be schooled through the technology as well so they can control the curriculum fully. So that's the way that it's going to go. And that's why you've heard stories like this as well the last couple of years, right? We heard all these stories about Boeing. Is it safe to fly with Boeing? Everything you need to know, right? Seed planting, making people not want to travel. How the congestion at the airports and the delays have made people not want to travel. And of course, these crashes recently, right? Travelers are fearful now of a plane crash. They don't trust being in the air anymore. Well, that's all done by design, ladies and gentlemen. And as I mentioned, the World Economic Forum, how we bring AI into the physical world with autonomous systems, autonomous aircraft, making flying safer, right? This is what you're going to see with air. First, it's going to start with the airlines, then it's going to move down to motor vehicles and getting people forced into these Tesla controllable vehicles where they'll tell you that nobody gets in accidents anymore. You'll hear stories about all these car accidents, texting and driving accidents, drunk driving accidents. You'll hear about them. It's coming. It's part of the plan. And that'll make you start thinking, okay, I don't feel safe to go out in the car anymore. And then you'll either do what they want, which is you won't go out in the car, and you'll order things to be delivered to your home. And then the only time you go out in the car is if you have to go to an office one day a week or do something inside your 15-minute city, and you just need to get out. Well, they'll make sure it's an autonomous vehicle. Now, of course, they won't tell you that if someone like me gets in an autonomous vehicle, it's not safe. I'll probably get driven right into the Grand Canyon head first. But for everybody else, it's likely to be safe. And don't forget AI's role in air traffic control. I'm sure we'll hear stories coming out about the air traffic control, just like we did in the DC story with the 67 people killed where the helicopter crashed in the plane. One of the narratives that's out there is about a lack of air traffic controllers. So that brings me back to Trump's partnership, of course, investing in $500 billion in AI infrastructure on day one of becoming president, letting all of us know that he is on board with the globals. And if you don't pay attention to things like AI and what they're trying to do and what the actual agenda is at the World Economic Forum and the United Nations, well, then you're going to miss it. And that's what they expect. They don't expect you to pay attention. They just expect you to pay attention to things about genders and if men can play women's sports and all types of insane things that shouldn't be discussed. Everybody out there who's MAGA should be paying attention and should have been paying attention for years about how the Tower of Babel rebuilt is all through artificial intelligence. That's the only way they can hook up a global government. People hear about global government. How do you think they're going to operate a global government? How do you think they're going to operate smart? Everything's going to be run through AI. Everything, right? So that means that all the countries have to start building out their AI infrastructure. And America, of course, is the guinea pig, right? Along with China. So in addition to all that, I want to talk about a little bit of the predictive programming as well with this, because I thought of this off the bat. And I thought of the movie Knock at the Cabin, which just came out within the last year or so, which I covered and did a video on, because of course the plot was playing into religious undertones and the four horsemen of the apocalypse and the end times, right? There's a plot of the movie is while vacationing, a girl and her parents are taken hostage by armed strangers who demand that the family make a choice to avert the apocalypse, right? The four intruders, they ask the family to execute one member of their family in order to save humanity. So they ask them they have to make a human sacrifice, right? And the movie stars Dave Bautista, the professional wrestler, who of course, just coincidental, right? That a professional wrestler suddenly gets put in the James Bond movies and becomes this huge famous actor. And he's got that eyeball in the pyramid tattooed on his chest. I guess, what was he doing one day? He was on the toilet looking in his wallet at an airport in between his wrestling matches, all oiled up in his tighty-whitey spandex that he wears. He's looking at, and he was like, that'd be a really cool tattoo. Never seen that before. Haven't seen it everywhere all the time. I'm going to take this dollar bill pyramid on the back, which I don't know what it means, and I'm going to put it right in the middle of my chest with a sun around it. All right, come on. You think he doesn't? Of course he knows what it means. And why do you think Dave Bautista is suddenly so famous and successful, right? Because he branched out. Because when you're in the Brotherhood, you can branch out. You can go from just being a pro wrestler to becoming a Hollywood star, right? And the movie, I'm going to show you the clip from Knock at the Cabin, because you got to see this clip about planes falling from the sky. There's predictive programming to it, okay? And I'll get into it in a minute. But the movie is from M. Night Shyamalan, and say his name right. And I just mentioned him in a video. His most recent movie, The Trap, or Trap, with the all-seeing eye symbolism right in the movie poster, right? And about, some type of a terror event happening at a concert or a large arena, right? With, there's a lot of symbolism out there with the coming Super Bowl or one of these Super Bowls. He's got another movie, Devil, right? With the, up as above, so below logo in the poster, right? With the pyramid as well. And he's done movies with predictive programming like The Happening, which really, if you think about The Happening and people dropping dead and a frequency hitting them, right? Could be a lot like the frequencies in those 5G towers, or the ones that are coming that are going to be a lot higher frequency that will cause people to drop dead. That same plot from The Happening that they just used in Leave the World Behind. And his daughter just did a film, which I covered, which is about the Watchers, right? From the book of Enoch. And you can see the movie poster with the all-seeing eye symbolism in it as well. He produced that film. So his films are filled with predictive programming, undertones like mentioning the Watchers and the fallen angels. The entire movie is about it. Let me show you a clip from that. And I'm not saying that, this is what's happening just because a few planes have crashed or there's turbulence in the sky. But there's predictive programming to this, and seeing more of these plane crashes occurring in the future. Take a look at this scene from Knock at the Door.
The skies will fall and crash to the earth like pieces of glass.
God's finger and everlasting darkness will descend over humanity.
Airports over.
So that's a little predictive programming for you, right? Now, the theme is cyber attackers or EMP and cause these planes to malfunction and fall out of the sky. But there's predictive programming to that as well. There's lots of movies that show some type of cyber attack or solar flare, wink, wink, EMP, that cause planes to just fall out of the sky. So these are not coincidences that are occurring around us. Nothing is. We've had multiple plane crashes after having how many other things have occurred so far this year? From the Vegas thing with the Cybertruck to the, what happened in New Orleans on New Year's Eve with the quote unquote terror attack. I mean, things are happening at a rapid pace. And to bring in Agenda 30, they have to happen at a rapid pace. So people out there will look and they'll say, well, is it a real plane crash or not? There's some weird things on the ground around where this went off, right? You could clearly see the plane on fire as it's falling. It looks like what we would believe would be a meteor or a directed energy weapon just going right into the ground. But what you have to pay attention to is when these events happen, that these are government events. They tip you off to this stuff by telling you the Shriners, the 666 symbolism. You'll see the 33 symbolism, right? The news anchor even mentioned 6 and 3 in that news clip that I played earlier for you. These events are going to continue because to bring about what they want, they create the chaos, right? Order out of chaos. Trump is now in place. The people who are supposed to be awake to the globalist agenda and the New World Order are not, because they're not really awake. They're just cheering on Trump, and they're happy that they control Democrats about DEI and gender ideology. That's what they care about. They don't care about truth enough to say, you know what? They are all in on it. And it's clear because we see AI governance coming in. They're not paying attention to what they're actually doing. These stories all have narratives attached to it. To bring in Agenda 2030, many of these false flags have to continue. You'll see more natural disasters. You'll see more weather phenomena like earthquakes and things like that occurring in New York. You'll see more airplanes fall out of the sky. You'll slowly start to hear more stories about how dangerous it is to drive. and how people shouldn't leave their home. Remember the lockdown, folks, because that's the way they plan for us to live, like prisoners in our home, with all the technology around us, keeping us under surveillance, listening to us, no different than being a prisoner in a cell. So we have another plane crash. We had a couple of weird stories this week about plane crashes. And of course, you watch the narrative that comes out. Is it safe to fly anymore? Should we be flying? Well, in a new world order, you won't be flying. So you might as well get nervous about it now so that when they tell you that there's travel restrictions, you won't care, because that's how mind control and false flag psychological operations work. I thank everybody for being here. I hope you're all doing well. God bless you and your families, as always.